Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello, hi, and welcome to Around the World Today here on Real Terrio Podcasts with me, Terry D. So it's summer 2020 and we are just finishing for the music to finish, and life seemed in a flux. So on today's episode we were going to be discussing, because this was meant to be your July episode but I was ill and now I'm back and now I'm better. So anyway, we're going to be discussing, the introduction. Have you ever watched a film but you've read the book before? There are many films out there like this, and there are many, I would say, different books as well. That, you know, there's a film based on a book. Have you ever, sat there, watched, the film, read the book before, and you were like, yeah, I've wasted 2 hours of my life watching the film, the book is much better? Now, I've come to this a couple of times. In this case, we're talking about the Bible, and there was a film or mini-series made in 1977 called Jesus of Nazareth. Now, isn't it funny that something that articulates the same point, the same story, the same historical accuracies, the same tale, isn't it funny that something can have two different meanings? It really is, isn't it? It's quite astonishing how you can agree with something with one point of view. Like, if you enjoyed the film, you would agree that you enjoyed it, like you enjoyed the film on the basis of, the argument. You enjoyed what it was showing. But then you could read the book, but because you're reading the book, you may not enjoy it. You may not get the story. You may not get the historical aspect behind it. Now, I talked about the Bible, but this is in many instances, such as Anne Frank's diary. I've read the diaries, I've watched the film. I prefer the diaries again in the book because it goes into more detail. However, sometimes the film is good to have as an inaccuracy, or to check. But, so we have that film, and we have the story. We have the same plot, don't we, in the book and the film? So there's no differences, really, because, if we take the Bible, there's not many ways that you can write the death of our Lord Jesus Christ. There's not many ways that you can get away from that. So you have the same story, the same life being told in the Bible as in the miniseries, just it skims over parts, and it, reads a part of scripture. And isn't it, then I've tried to put this into today's form, isn't it quite funny that you can have two different forms of communication? Or even, as I've said in my article that does go with this, so go to our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/RealTerrio. Go to our website, www.realterrio.com, and it should be in there in the Around the World section. But, isn't it quite funny that you can have these two different forms of communication? So take, in the United Kingdom, we've got an organisation called Reach Media. Now, Reach Media own two different kind of newspapers. They own the Daily Mirror and the Daily Express. One is aimed at left-wing voters, where the other one is aimed at right-wing. Now, it's quite funny that to their readers, they don't see that the company. So the left-wing readers call the Daily Express toilet paper and vice versa. Okay, so that's fine. But what they don't seem to understand is that the media company is actually quite non-biased because it's given a point of view on both accounts, rather than staying neutral. Okay, so you can see it in a different way. They own the Daily Mirror, they own the Daily Express, and now these two newspapers have totally different readers, totally types of news, and they tell the news in a different way. But it's the same news that's going on around the world. Where the Mirror is doom and gloom Brexit, the Daily Express is pro-Brexit. So you could argue that basically what this company is doing is using their position to stay unbiased because they own two different newspapers. They get the story on two different slants. Okay, so let's jump forward a bit, shall we? So, in the last few months, what's been going on? Well, why have I mentioned this? So for the last 5 minutes, 6 minutes, you're probably now thinking, well, I've just heard Terry ramble on about right-wing newspapers v left-wing newspapers and the Bible v TV show. Well, all of this comes into context during this podcast. So you need to stay tuned and listen. So what's been going on in the last couple of months? I hear you all say, and I've just said it myself. So this is the second time. Well, let's try again. In June, I turned 33, yay! And Hong Kong's civil rights were taken away from them. Well, wait a second. I bet we can find Hong Kongers who are getting the same information, the same... So, yeah, I get we can, can't we? We can find here there are people in Hong Kong who probably are Hong Kongers and called Hong Kongers who support what Hong Kong government and the Chinese government are doing. Just like we can find people in Hong Kong who do not support what they're doing. Now, are these people good Hong Kongers? Who are we to discuss, or even with China? Within the world today, there's a lot of anti-China rhetoric. Even here in Wales, there's, what makes a Welsh person who wants independence any less important than a Welsh person who doesn't? Who judges what makes you a good citizen? You may have two different points of view of how you want the country to be, or even politically, or even just two different points of view, but it doesn't mean that you're not a good Chinese person or a good British person just because you don't follow the political ideology of that. So basically, back to the papers. Now, one paper would slate off the Labour Party, where the other paper would be on the Labour Party's side. One paper would slate the Conservatives, where the other paper would be on the Conservative side. The problem here is, when you're playing at these kind of games, shall we say, and you're playing each other off against each other, it becomes that other organisations follow the same track, don't they? See, we all become nasty, but do we? But anyway, alright, so, okay, let's look a little bit closer here now with the Hong Kong question. So, where I am, in Wales, and being British, okay, what we have that, yeah, I'm Terry, yeah, I'm a very proud Welshman, but I'm also a very proud British person. Now, we are not talking about the arguments against Welsh independence and, for Welsh independence. I'm still adding up the equation here because I really don't know what's going to happen. This is more of a reflection on how I've seen the last couple of years within the media and even the P word politics, that is. So That's my computer telling me it's time to do something else. Sorry. So, Wales, the land of my forefathers and the land of red dragons and the sheep and even castles and churches. If you've never been here, you really do have to come visit. I will stake a bet on it that you'll fall in love with the country. Nearly all people who come to Wales actually do fall in love with Wales. So, what I'm saying is that what makes us great sometimes are those differences of opinion. Wait there. Hang on a sec. I know what you're all thinking. How? How does this work? Well, the way it works is that we were all born different. We all have different points of view. We all have a different view of the world. We all see things differently. We all think differently. We do not live in a state that tries to control us in a way where other states do. Now, let's see. Now, it's quite thing. So looking more at the British, the Welsh, just because I may decide to support Welsh independence, does that make me less proud to be British? No. Does it make me less proud to be Welsh? Definitely not. It's just that I believe that independence here in Wales, or the political situation in Wales, would be better taken by people here in Wales. Now, Wales is still a part of Great Britain, where we wouldn't be leaving Great Britain, so I would still be British. So back to China and Hong Kong. So even in the Communist Party, right? Who is your loyalty to in China? Now we hear all of this, the China virus, and that's what we're hearing from Donald Trump right now, is the China virus. Well, the problem here is, right, the people of China, not every person supports the Communist Party. Now, if we're going to classify people by their politics and countries by their politics, so they try and blame China. And this goes down of semantics and labelling stuff properly. And the moment Donald Trump came out and blamed China, he was trying to blame the Chinese race. Yes, there were attacks for it. Now, I put it to you that a loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party isn't a loyalty to the Chinese race or the Chinese people. They are two different things. Just like in here, in Wales, your loyalty to Welsh independence or your loyalty to staying Great British doesn't mean that you're no more of a great Welsh person. Because we are all united. The things that make us different are also the things that unite us in that great nationhood. So being a great Welshman or a great British person. I love the fact that Britain has 4 countries around it who are partners and who are meant to be equal but are not treated as equal. I would like a more fairer United Kingdom, not a Unitarian Marxist Leninist one-party state system, as some people have suggested in the past.
Click, listen, enjoy.
So, yeah, someone did suggest that maybe I should become a Marxist-Leninist. Like I said, there is a bit in the article. Do read it. I will be summarising it. But I'm going to tell you some of my own feelings now of what's been going on. So, in the last couple of weeks, during COVID-19, there's a group on Facebook for my local area. It's about promoting community and a sense of community, basically, where we live. I love stuff like this because I think it really does work. Do you know what I mean? Now, we have a problem in the United Kingdom, and it's a problem that seems to be going on all over the world.
Download episodes of previous shows.
Can be downloaded. But anyway, the problem seems to be going on all over the world, and my computer is making a weird noise. Yeah, well, so this problem is the rise of the right wing. And they seem to be, and this has hello? Hello? Oh, you're back. Okay, so we're back, and we're not back, we're going to go back on track, I would think, a little bit. At the moment, here we have the pandemic in the world, don't we? It's all kicking off about, how the hard left, Donald Trump's re-election, how he keeps most of the world are like, come on, America. This man is not impressing, he's embarrassing you as a nation. Now, even me with a hidden disability sees this, and this has been a bit of a Tyrannitorian raid. And this isn't meant to be like that. This podcast is meant to be more upbeat and keeping you informed of what's been going on. Now, back to classifying nationhood as political ideology. We don't go around and classifying America as a Republican, so a Republican America, do we? Now, why when Donald Trump is talking about China, he says Communist China? Why are we declaring them a political party? That's the way they form their government, whoopee-doo. It doesn't mean that every person in China follows the communist doctrine. Just like it doesn't mean that every person in the United States is a Republican. Because if you look at the last election results, Donald Trump actually lost on the popular vote. So, you could argue that America is more Democrat than Republican in the last election. And also again in the last election just gone for the Congress. Be interested to see what happens there. You can follow that on our podcast at Real Terrio. So, once again, isn't this good? Even Donald Trump's niece has been coming out and talking about how unstable he is. Now, she should know this. She is privy to Donald Trump in person and in private. And with private relationships of people who knew him and his family. So, she obviously knows what's going on. I would expect so, wouldn't you? Now, again, right? Let's look at the United Kingdom, shall we? We're no better, are we, really? Have you seen what we've got in charge? Boris Johnson, Mr. Brexit, Mr. £42 million on a bus. Mr. I want to build a bridge. Bridge that ain't being built. Mr. Boris double-decker buses. There's no use for them outside London. And they've been recalled and stopped being built. Where else are we? Now, he was born in New York. That's what him and Donald Trump both have in common, is that they were born in New York. They both have the same hairstyle. Really good. However, one copies the other. I was watching the Donald Trump press conference the other day, and Donald Trump it was like watching a Boris press conference from March. It's like they done a full 360. Now, the problem with these two men are that they've never really lived life, have they? They've had everything handed to them on the silver platter. Now, this is their curse, their downfall, because they can't relate to people. They cannot relate to normal people like me or you, my friend. They really can't.
If you enjoyed today's show, please head over to iTunes, give us a rating, and leave a review.
They really can't relate to what life is like for a normal person, for a person living on the breadline, for a person who would attend a food bank, a person who would attend a church for breakfast or for lunch. A person living on the street, not knowing where the next meal, not knowing where the next night, not knowing the love of another human being, the compassion of just wanting someone to give you the time of day. Donald Trump and Boris Johnson wouldn't understand, firstly, what it's like to be that person. Secondly, to what it's like to want to actually help that person. Many good charities in both the United Kingdom and the UK, and actually around the world, in many countries, are trying to end homelessness and poverty. And my problem with people like Donald Trump and with Boris Johnson is that they've never worked for it. Donald Trump, his father paid for him to go to all the best schools. Boris Johnson, Eton, Oxford, walking into the Daily whatever, then walking into Parliament, then, do you know what I mean? They've never worked for anything. They've got to their places because of who their fathers were. I find it quite pompous as a British person. Let's talk about a Britishness, right? When you're seeing people comment about race, but in the same thing, arguing for Boris Johnson to be Prime Minister. Boris Johnson isn't British. He's British by technicality. He's not British by birth. British by birth means that you were born in the United Kingdom or one of its territories. Boris Johnson was born in the United States of America. That makes him United States citizen by birth. Yes, he can be registered as a Brit, but by default, by who his father is. So we're going to jump back to that community group that's in my local area that seems to have been taken over by a right-wing cabal. Let me tell you about the cabal leader. The cabal leader, Stanley, we'll call him Stanley, attends my church, actually, from time to time. It's quite interesting, because what I normally get from the Bible is love, hope. Everyone is our brother or our sister. We do not judge. We treat everyone else as they would want to be treated. We don't judge them because they may be Muslim or a different religion to us. We don't judge them because they have no religion. It's not our place as Christians to judge anyone. If you feel that it's your place to judge people, I actually have a quote for you about that. What I'm actually finding on my computer. So, quite interesting, isn't it? Do not judge, or you will be judged. For the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure that you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of the sawdust in your brother's eye and pay attention to the plank in your own eye. Now, that's from Matthew 7. So the Gospel according to Matthew. Now, why should we judge people? We shouldn't be judging each other and trying to think. So back to the group. They are... This group, okay, I wasn't going to go and do this, but I have to. So this group is set up as a Swansea Leavers. So people who voted Leave. And that's what they're trying to aim for. Basically, it all goes back to the Brexit Party stating that they're going to campaign against the Welsh Parliament, not understanding, first and foremost, that the Welsh Parliament came about the same way as the Brexit did, by a vote of the people, even their increase of powers. So, quite funny. So, yes, there's been a big uproar about this because people don't want to get rid of the Welsh Parliament. Mostly were their volunteers. So they've gone with their way. Another lot, Stanley's lot, have gone another way here in Swansea. And they've decided to call themselves the Swansea Leavers. They've got a passionate statement by all accounts. The only thing is, it took me an hour to actually get the man to admit his racist rhetoric and his anti-Muslim Islamophobia ways. Now, the problem we have here is that not only does it constitute wrong, not only does it go against everything we're taught in the Bible, not only does it go against certain laws of this country, but they're now questioning a councillor for calling them out as the racist thugs that I know they are to be. That other people know they are to be. They have habits of taking over community groups in local areas, these people. They post their unfiltered and untruthful versions of the truth, or their warped sense of the truth. The problem we have with these people is that, in my opinion, they're quite uneducated. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm a highly educated person. I'm not. I'm a dyslexic. At the end of the day, I couldn't read properly until I went to comprehensive school. Until I was in year 9, year 10. I wasn't reading to my own age group. I'm still not. I still struggle reading hints. And I'm not going to unadmit that. I am a dyslexic. I was made a dyslexic. We talked about religion here. God made me a dyslexic. So, and I'm quite happy about that. And I thank him every day for making me have a disability, for making me be different, moulded in his own image. So, that's fine. I'm happy with my disability. I'm happy with who I am. But what I'm not happy about is people judging people, saying that we don't want them here because they're Muslim, or we don't want them here because they're different, because they don't fit in. They don't fit your warped sense of understanding or your warped judgments of the world. Well, okay then, let's try it the other way. How would you feel if you were being persecuted? So one of these problems is that they want to get rid of the human rights policies and laws in this country. Really good. So you want to end the people who vote for you human rights. The things that guarantee them their rights, such as freedom of religion, freedom to express themselves, freedom to be able to travel without hindrance, So, in the UK, questions, answers, a lot more, of freedoms that they wish to take away from you and get rid of you from your rights. Then they want to end something else that, was nothing a part of the UN. And they want to end stuff to do with the UN, nothing to do with Brexit, but they want it. And let's give it to them, shall we? Yeah, I very much doubt it. Stanley seems to run in elections a lot, and his little cabal. They never have been elected, have they? He's English, and by the look of it, the Brexit Party shipped him in, and when the Brexit Party went tits up, Pete Tong, that is what happened. Now, what's really hard to understand, right, is that they claim to be going off at a councillor in Townhill, but they're not from Townhill. If they were from Townhill, my point of view of where I live is that we may all be different. And this is going back to how we started this podcast now, people. So we may all be different, My next door neighbours, one side, in one house I have a lovely family, Filipino family, both working in the NHS and the care sector. Both have been working very hard during COVID-19. On the other side, because I'm in the middle, I've got another family, lovely again. I haven't had much to do with them. They've been here about a year now. We're going into the second year. Next door to them is a family from India. And then another British family. Here again, you've got an Indian family on the other side, so number 30 side, and another British family. So, as you can see, this street, and many streets up here, are quite diverse. Townhill is now a diverse place. It was. And I would argue it always has been because of Swansea. The area of Swansea that was cleaned out were slums. This is why Townhill was built. But these people don't obviously get that they were also having a totalitarian raid against socialism and all principles of socialism. So socialist principles are the NHS. Socialist principles are building houses, council houses owned by the state. Socialist principles such as making transport work for everyone and not one big owner. These principles of socialism that are coming around today that we should be doing more of, according to people. The last poll that I saw was more people were advocating for a return of nationalisation of railways and public transport. So if that's the case, remember, again, the nationalisation of companies is a socialist move. So they argue against socialism and how bad socialism is. But I bet you they're not arguing this when they go to the hospital after a football match or punch up on a Saturday evening. I bet you they're not advocating how bad socialism is when they're living in their poxy council house. And I'm not going to say anything here because I actually do live in a poxy council house. But I bet you they're not actually advocating how bad socialism is then. I bet you they're not advocating how bad socialism is when, they're jumping on a train to London Paddington to one of their right-wing cabal meetings. And, the train's running 3 hours late and they're hankering for the day of National Rail. Many people here in the UK, like I said, are hankering for those days. But these people, see, what they don't understand, what they don't get, is that they stood in so many elections. Their point of view are minimalistic. The great majority of people are quite well educated in the United Kingdom, and it's going to go back to this. I believe that we need to be educating our children how to vote. We need to be educating our children how to read an election manifesto. We need to educate our children in democracy, into knowing what is bull and what isn't bull. We need to be educating our children in many different ways of citizenship, of what makes them to be a good citizen. I was doing my daily prayers on the 30th of July, and I do daily prayers every day. You heard earlier a chime from my laptop. That's what it was, telling me it's coming up to time for me to do my daily prayer, like the hour I do it in. So on the 30th, a question came up on my Bible verse for the day, because I switch through different kind of daily prayer. So yeah, and on the one that I was using, it posed a question: how do you become a good citizen? The question here is, right, how do you become a good citizen? What is a good citizen? Once again, by judging people by your standards. Yeah, so that question, what makes a good citizen? Or how to be a good citizen? Answer it. There is a comment box down below. Answer the question. What does? Let's see what answers we get here. But to me, how can we be a good citizen? Don't judge other people by your insecurities. Don't judge other people by something that, you may seem a bit wrong. To you, it may be wrong. To someone else, it may be right. And you aren't going to be the judge. None of us are the final judge. So what does it matter what someone else thinks about you? Like I said about Stanley, it took me an hour. He was trying to hide the fact that it wasn't about race. We even had a discussion about Shamima Begum. My views on Shamima Begum are that she should be locked up for her crimes. She committed a crime against the state of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So therefore, she should be punished for that crime according to our law. Now, just leaving her in the Middle East means that she's free to live her life without being punished. Sorry, but that isn't really, her being punished for her crime, is it? Too many of you try and think and say that, it's not because she's Indian, it's not because she's a Muslim. Yeah, it kind of is, really, isn't it? At the end of the day, how would you feel if it was a right-wing nut job named Lee Laxley Lennon, who's just moved to Spain? And I suggest that any person who has these views of anti-Muslim, anti-LGBT rights, or anti-anything, to tell you the truth, or any anti-differences, I really do suggest you move to Spain. I believe the last time I looked, punishment for any of these crimes is up to 10 years in prison. And deportation afterwards. So, yeah, I would go there. Enjoy yourself. Move there. They may seem right-wing, but they really don't like racist people. Maybe it's the Catholic Church element. It could be. Now, other people, back to Britain, back to the UK, and Stanley, right? What these people don't get is in the United Kingdom we have something like devolution, what's like a federal state, but it's not really federalism. If we look at Australia, Canada, they've become federal states. They're states, so in our instance, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, England, if we must, will all be equal. Now, people here in England, actually, have voted against them having their own parliaments because they don't get the system. The problem is they see being British as being controlled by Westminster. No, it's not. Our parliament is old, but it's time for a change. Our life is old. Just because we are different, it doesn't mean, once again, that we are going to change. It doesn't mean that we're any less able to come up or be, you're not any less different. You're not any less British. You're not any less Welsh. You're not any less Chinese, because if you don't support the government, it could be that you just don't support what they're offering you. It could be that, you do support them. But supporting politics with all these differences and the points of view and, like, the cabal, to me, it's just like, okay, you need to take a step back from life, because I was getting attacked from these people. I'm the one who got thrown out of that group, mind, for speaking my mind and actually putting him right on all of his warped views. I actually quite enjoyed it. I haven't had an attack session like that in quite some time. I think the last person was a member of the British Nationalist Party in Blackpool, and that was quite hilarious. I was 17 at the time, and I put him back in his place. I come from a strong advocating family. I like to speak my mind, and I like to speak out against injustices. I feel that that's what we're all, as human beings, as Christians, as brothers and sisters, as uncles, as aunties, nephews, and so on, friends, or just humans, we're all called to call out all of these great injustices in the world. We're all called by some great power, some great being, some great life, some great form, to not submit to injustice, to not bow down to something that we know to be wrong. If it's wrong, we, as human beings, our conscience, our one thing that controls us, somehow, if you're immorally inept, shall we say, that's the only way that you're not going to pull yourself back from some kind of abyss. But sometimes with Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, people like this, their moral compasses or their consciences don't allow them to be able to do this. Even Xi Jinping. What he sees as good for the country may not actually be good for the country. It may not be what the country wants. Does that make Xi Jinping any less Chinese? No, it doesn't. Does it make anyone who's against him any less Chinese? No, it doesn't. It just means there's a disagreement, and we need to go into that. Now, I'm going to cut it short here, and we'll have another one of these next week. And thank you for tuning in to Around the World Series 3, Episode 15, and I hope you are well, and speak to you soon.
This week's episode has come to an end, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share and get involved. Join us next time.